want to know where the product market fit came from and then why this mechanism and this design.
Yeah. So first of all, really a convenient way to carry water. It doesn't have to be a water bottle. We've provided, reservoirs, water reservoirs that you can carry in. And that's part of our current system that we've just launched. But originally the idea is, any reservoir of water. It started in off-road desert motorcycle racing.
Okay.
And we said, and our team were all adventure sports enthusiasts, motorsports specifically, but just really into, moto and race. And how do I go really fast, really hard, really long? And the idea was it's grueling conditions. It's just epically hot.
Yeah.
You get really dehydrated really fast. It's not an easy thing to be going at speed over this kind of terrain. So the idea of taking your eye off the ball or your hands off the, either steering wheel or in this case, the handlebars of a bike to be able to hydrate was just not something that happened. So you'd go miles and miles and miles, and then everybody would take a break and you would just be dying. And then to think that you had miles and miles to go again, so the Baja 1000 is really where the race where this idea formed about, oh my gosh, there has to be a better way. What we found then was there is in fact a better way. And it started with the convenience of how do I get water to my mouth in a hands-free fashion where I'm not distracted from my, activity or mission. And what it turned into is how do I know how and when to drink to truly stay optimally hydrated, not just to have an easy way to get water. So kind of ideated that way. But as we, iterated and really saw what was the pain point challenges that we were getting in the motorsport space, it was broader than just how do I get water to my mouth. And so we kind of went down that journey. Motorsports is a really exciting place to be. It's, again, an awesome proving grounds, really great on, environmental conditions are tough. It's got a huge cognitive and physical load. So you're, going 200 plus miles an hour with somebody going 200 plus miles an hour, 2 inches away from you, turning. It's
Yeah.
not an easy thing to do. It's super intense. Physically, it's intense. Our athletes will lose 7 pounds or more of sweat during a 2 hour or longer engagement. There's just an intensity there. It's hot usually. You're doing this in southern places or you're doing it in summertime, when the season goes. And so, you'll have with solar load, anywhere between 100 and 130 degrees in the cockpit. You're wearing these full protective suits. So your fire suit plus a balaclava plus a helmet, and that then adds another couple of degrees. So it's just really intense. So that's awesome because you can't really come up with much more grueling conditions where to test and prove this out. But we knew that it's not really a scalable market. And so we said, okay, let's focus first on adjacency. Who are the people who really care about going hard, fast, long, and then recovering fast so that they can do it again. We were really thinking about, I love to say this all the time. I'm like, do you want to win? Well, yeah, Sarah, I want to win. Okay, then you need this. Not, let me tell you about why water is important.
I like that a lot.
And it's got this sort of shift. And so the markets that we're moving into really focus on that early adoption performance piece. Do you want to win? And whether that's competing against yourself, like I do now because I'm old, or whether it's, competing, in a real race or at an amateur level, or whether it's just wanting to make sure that you can continue to do your high-end, high-intensity activity over and over and over again by reducing recovery times. That's our thing. So we're motorsports and power sports shifted into adventure sports that really with this last launch then of our product this week, which has been so exciting, is into, two-wheeled adventure. So think motocross, mountain biking, e-biking, that kind of a thing.
This is really cool. I've been to a few Baja 1000s and 5000s down in Mexico, and I have friends who drive those trophy trucks down there, and it's so intense, and they're sweating their ass off after, and they've said they lost 10 pounds, exactly like you said. And I never thought about, are they actually hydrating during the race, which is such a good point. And then when I saw this, I was like, oh my God, this is brilliant. Like, how has no one else came up with this?
Well, it's not even just are they hydrating at all during the race? It's kind of how you're hydrating. And the traditional hydration methods right now are a squeezy bottle with a straw. And you're only doing that in a place where you think you can do it without basically, crashing and dying.
Yeah.
So if I'm on a road track, then that's going to be on a straightaway, maybe. There's a lot of, like I said before, cognitive load. So you're thinking about tons of things. The last thing that you're thinking about is, where do I find my water? So a lot of times it gets missed or skipped. But when we did our clinical trials, we saw this differentiation between how you consumed water. So over the course of the race, using our system or using that, squeezy bottle system, our athletes were consuming about the same amount of water. But the method within which they had it was so different. Like, I'm
Mm.
thirsty, I'm dying, I'm guzzling water. And so what happens is your body just doesn't have time to absorb that. And so our system helps take care of that problem for you.
So yeah, there's a direct relation to your performance based off of the timing of when you're drinking water as an athlete, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And in the motorsports use case, well, really, we think in any use case, the science behind active hydration is that you have continued hydration. So smaller bursts of water more often over time give your body a chance to absorb that. So imagine, that you have a medicine cup or a shot glass equivalent, which is about 30 milliliters of water, and you drink that, say, every 2 to 5 minutes over your activity. And so in the end, you're consuming the 16 ounces of water versus if you just guzzle 16 ounces of water, your body doesn't have time to absorb it. I like to use an analogy to a sponge on a table. And if you dump 16 ounces of water on a sponge, the sponge is going to absorb some, but most of it is just going to run off the table onto the floor. If you, in contrast, will dump this medicine cup and then wait 2 minutes and do it again and wait 2 minutes and do it again, you definitely get that same 16 ounces of water and it stays in the sponge. Your body is very similar in how it reacts to that. And so in the 16-ounce guzzling case, you're absorbing maybe an ounce or two, and the rest you're eliminating, when you go to the bathroom. Similarly to falling off the table onto the floor.